Imagine two people. One earns $300,000 a year, the other earns $100,000. You would probably assume the first person is much closer to becoming a millionaire. But now change one detail. The person earning $300,000 spends almost everything they make. The person earning $100,000 keeps buying assets that can grow in value. Give them enough time, and the person with the smaller paycheck could end up with more wealth. So what happened? They didn't discover a secret way to earn money. They changed what their money was doing. And that leads to a much bigger question. How do millionaires actually make their money? The answer isn't one investment, one business, or one personality trait. It's a shift from earning money to owning things that can create or increase value. But even that explanation leaves out something important, because owning an asset isn't enough. You have to understand which assets can grow, why they grow, and how people get enough capital to own them in the first place. That's where the real story begins. For most people, money starts with work. You trade your time and skills for a paycheck. You can become more valuable, get promoted, change careers, or start earning from additional work. But there is a problem. Your time is limited. You can only work so many hours. And that creates a natural ceiling on labor income. An asset doesn't always have the same limitation. A share of a company can represent a claim on the company's future profits. A business can serve thousands of customers. A property can generate rent. An investment portfolio can hold pieces of many companies, and a successful business can become more valuable even while its owner isn't personally doing every job inside it. This is why ownership appears so often when we look at wealthy households. Federal Reserve data from 2022 found that nearly half of families in the top 10% of the income distribution owned a privately held business. But here's where the story gets more interesting. Business ownership itself is not the same as business success. Among families with businesses employing more than 5 people, average business equity was nearly $3.9 million. That sounds like an extraordinary amount. But the median was only $400,000. The difference matters because a relatively small number of very valuable businesses can pull the average upward. So the lesson isn't, own a business and you'll become a millionaire. The lesson is, a business can become an asset whose value is far larger than the income one person could earn from working alone. And that brings us to one of the most important ideas in wealth creation. Scale. Think about a local restaurant. If the owner wants to serve more customers, they may need a larger dining room, more staff, more equipment, and another location. Growth is possible, but it requires more resources. Now compare that with a software company. The company may spend years building a product. But once the product exists, serving another customer doesn't necessarily require rebuilding the entire product. That's what makes certain businesses scalable. The same basic idea can appear in technology, retail, franchises, financial services, media, and online platforms. The business creates a system that can serve more people, without the owner's personal labor increasing at exactly the same rate. And this is where business ownership can become very different from simply having a high-paying job. A high-income professional may earn more because their skills are valuable. A business owner can potentially earn from the value created by an entire organization, employees, customers, systems, technology, brand, distribution, capital. But scale creates another problem. You can build something that can serve millions of people and still have nobody interested in buying it. That's where the customer becomes the center of the story. Consider Amazon in its early years. In 1996, Amazon's sales were about $15.7 million. 1 year later, they had reached $147.8 million. Amazon said it had served more than 1.5 million customers by the end of 1997. But the interesting part isn't simply the growth. It's what the company was doing to create that growth. Amazon focused on selection, convenience, lower prices, reviews, recommendations, and the shopping experience. Its 1997 shareholder letter also said repeat purchases and word of mouth were major drivers of its early growth. The company wasn't just trying to make one sale, It was trying to create a reason for customers to return, and that distinction matters, because acquiring a customer can be expensive. But if that customer keeps buying, the economics can change. One purchase becomes two, two becomes five, and a large group of returning customers can become an important asset to the business. That's one reason companies care so much about retention, and it's also why recurring revenue is so powerful. Costco provides a very different example. Its customers pay for membership before they even make their regular purchases. At the end of fiscal 2025, Costco reported 81 million paid members worldwide. Its worldwide renewal rate was 89.8%. It also reported about $5.3 billion in membership fee revenue for the year. The important point isn't that Costco discovered some secret marketing trick. It's that Costco built a business where the customer relationship itself has continuing economic value. The customer joins, the customer shops, the customer decides whether the value is good enough to renew. And if they renew, the relationship continues. Now imagine doing that at enormous scale. Millions of customers, thousands of transactions, years of relationships. That changes what a business is worth. But there's another question. Asterisk. What does the owner do with the money after the business earns it? More. This is where many wealth stories become less exciting, but much more important. The owner can take the money out and spend it, or the business can reinvest it. More employees, more locations, better technology, more inventory, more marketing, better distribution, a larger customer base. If those investments work, the business can become larger, and a larger business can generate more revenue. That creates a feedback loop. The business grows, the owner reinvests, the business grows again, and over many years, relatively small advantages can become very large differences. Amazon's original 1997 shareholder letter gives us a good example of this mindset. The company was growing rapidly, but it was also investing heavily in infrastructure. Its employee count increased from 158 to 614 during 1997. Its distribution center capacity expanded from 50,000 square feet to 285,000 square feet. Amazon was spending money to build the system that would support future growth. That strategy was risky. Amazon itself acknowledged that it required serious investment and carried significant risk. But if the investments worked, the company would have something much more valuable than a single profitable year. It would have a larger business. And this is where the idea of compounding becomes more interesting than the usual stock market explanation. Compounding isn't just about interest. It's about growth building on previous growth. A business can gain customers. Those customers can generate revenue. Revenue can fund expansion. Expansion can create more customers, and those customers can generate even more revenue. Investments can work similarly. If returns remain invested, future returns can build on earlier gains. But there is an important warning. Asterisk. Growth is not guaranteed. A business can reinvest millions and make bad decisions. A stock can fall. A property can lose value. A new product can fail. Compounding works in both directions. Time can magnify success, but it can also magnify bad decisions, and that is one reason the popular image of millionaires as fearless risk-takers is misleading. Successful wealth creation usually involves risk, but risk isn't the same thing as recklessness. Entrepreneurs often have to make decisions without knowing the outcome. Research covering 62 studies found that different forms of entrepreneurial overconfidence can make people more likely to see opportunities and start ventures, but that same overconfidence can hurt performance later. In other words, confidence can help someone get started. Too much confidence can make it harder to recognize when something isn't working. So imagine you're given $100,000. You have two choices. Option A: put it into diversified investments and give it many years to potentially grow. Option B: use it to start a business that could eventually become worth millions, but could also lose most of your money. Which would you choose, A or B? And don't just choose one. Explain why. Because the interesting part isn't simply whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur. It's how you think about asterisk, risk, time, and control. There's another reason this question doesn't have one universal answer. Not every millionaire follows the same path. This is where the internet often gets wealth completely wrong. It takes the story of a billionaire founder and presents it as if every millionaire became rich the same way. They didn't. Someone with a $1.2 million net worth may have built it through decades of income, saving, retirement accounts, investments, and home equity. Another person might own a business worth several $1 million. Another might have inherited assets. Another might combine several of these. UBS estimated that the number of U.S. dollar millionaires worldwide increased by more than 680,000 during 2024, bringing the global total to roughly 60 million adults in its sample. That's a useful reminder that millionaire describes a level of net wealth, not a single lifestyle or career. And this changes the question. Instead of asking, what job do millionaires have? We should ask, what assets make up their wealth? For many households, those assets can include stocks, retirement accounts, businesses, and real estate. Federal Reserve data show that stock ownership rises sharply with income. In 2022, 95% of families in the top 10% of the income distribution held stocks either directly or indirectly, compared with 34% of families in the bottom half. Among families that own stocks, the median value of those holdings in the top income group was about $608,000. That doesn't mean stocks are a guaranteed path to becoming a millionaire. It means something simpler. Asterisk. People with more wealth tend to have more ownership of financial and business assets. And once you understand that, another popular myth starts to fall apart. Millionaires don't necessarily need to be extremely frugal. Some are, some aren't. The important question is, what happens to their money before it gets spent? If every increase in income immediately becomes a bigger house, a more expensive car, and a more expensive lifestyle, rising income doesn't automatically create rising wealth. But if part of that income is consistently converted into assets, those assets can potentially grow alongside future income. That's why two people with identical salaries can eventually have completely different net worths. The difference is not necessarily intelligence. It isn't necessarily motivation, and it isn't always discipline. It's often the combination of asterisk income, saving, ownership, time, and the performance of the assets they own. But there is still an uncomfortable part of this story. Hard work alone does not guarantee wealth. Starting conditions matter. Access to capital matters. Education matters. Networks matter. Economic conditions matter. Timing matters. Luck matters. And sometimes, family wealth matters. That doesn't make achievement meaningless. It means the path to wealth is more complicated than the simple story that anyone can become rich if they just work hard enough. The evidence points to something much less glamorous. Wealth tends to accumulate when people are able to turn some of today's resources into claims on future economic value. Sometimes that happens through a business, sometimes through stocks, sometimes through property, sometimes through a combination, and the process can take decades. That's why the word millionaire can be misleading. The person who quietly accumulated $1 million over 30 years may have very little in common with a founder whose company suddenly became worth $20 million. One relied heavily on time and accumulation. The other relied much more on ownership and business growth. Both are wealthy, but they got there through very different mechanisms. And that may be the most important thing to understand. There is no single millionaire formula. There is a spectrum. At one end, you have your labor. You work. You earn. You save. At the other end, you own assets that can generate income or appreciate in value. The more your financial life moves from depending entirely on your own hours toward owning productive assets, the more your wealth can potentially grow independently of your daily labor. But that doesn't mean you stop working. It means your work can begin creating something that lasts beyond the hours you put into it. A business can continue operating after you leave for the night. A portfolio can continue changing in value while you're asleep. A customer can return without you personally making another sales call. An employee can create value without you doing that person's job. That's the real difference. Not that millionaires have discovered a secret way to make money, but that, over time, Many of them have acquired ownership in things that can create value beyond their own working hours. So the next time you see someone earning a huge salary, don't immediately assume they're wealthy. And the next time you see someone who looks ordinary, don't assume they're not. The more useful question is much quieter. Asterisk, asterisk. What do they own? Because income tells you what someone earned. Net worth tells you what they kept. And ownership tells you what they have a claim on for the future. That may be the closest thing to a real answer. Millionaires don't all make money the same way. But wealth often begins when some of the money you earn stops being the end of the story and starts becoming the beginning of what you own.